Hi there, my name is Marla Neufeld. I'm a Florida reproductive attorney and licensed in the state of Florida. So people commonly ask me, does the surrogacy process change if you're transferring 1 or 2 embryos? So I'm actually a former intended parent who has twin boys from the process. I feel incredibly blessed from the process we went through and the fact that I have my 2 boys. However, there are medical risks that come along with transferring 2 embryos, and it's critical that you speak to your reproductive doctor about the legal risks involved in surrogacy when doing a double embryo transfer. So it really boils down to the recommendation of your fertility clinic whether or not you're eligible and recommended to transfer 2 embryos, because there are medical risks involved. For example, I see things like more chances of the surrogate being on bed rest, which would involve the intended parents having to pay for possibly lost wages or childcare or housekeeping for the surrogate. So you do need to consider the cost-benefit analysis of doing 2 and how much that actually helps your success versus the financial cost and, most importantly, the medical risks that's involved in transferring 2. Now, under Florida law, whether or not you put 1 or 2 embryos in does not impact the legal course of action or the agreement necessarily. The laws will be the same whether or not you're putting in 1 or 2 embryos. It is important to, in looking for your surrogate, to consider whether or not your surrogate is open to transferring 2 embryos at the embryo transfer cycle, because not all surrogates are open to the risks that come along with putting in 2 embryos. So it will be important that she also speak to the reproductive doctor before agreeing to putting in 2 embryos to make sure the surrogate understands what risk does that put her life and health at when doing a double embryo transfer. Now, within most contracts, when a surrogate does have a successful twin pregnancy, she does typically receive additional payments for carrying each multiple because of all the extra stress and everything that's going through her body and carrying a twin pregnancy. So there is typically additional payments made to the surrogate when carrying multiples. That's typically paid out throughout the pregnancy. Also, when there's a C-section, it's more likely to happen with multiples. There is an additional payment typically for a C-section delivery. So again, it's another financial consideration to the intended parent to think about before you transfer 2 embryos. And as I mentioned before, with a higher likelihood of bed rest because of twins, you may be more likely to have to pay lost wages, childcare, and housekeeping. So when considering a double embryo transfer, most importantly, speak to your reproductive doctor, have your surrogate speak to the doctor so everybody fully understands what risks there may be in carrying twins. And in fact, some clinics will not even do a double embryo transfer absent very special circumstances. So make sure you talk about this at the very beginning when you're discussing this with your medical doctor, when finding your surrogate, and discuss it with your attorney so that the contract can properly address the payments and what financial kind of exposure an intended parent may have when doing a double embryo transfer. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me at 954-761-2929. Thank you very much.